Okay, now you might have a simple idea of the controlling module about and how it differentiates from the FI module that I have covered so far. So controlling module is all about internal reporting within the company, which is not shown to the external third-party stakeholders such as shareholders and so forth. This is purely this reporting are purely done for internal controlling purposes, so that we can cut costs on certain internal departments where the cost is going beyond a justifiable mean. So let's look at cost center accounting and what is cost center accounting is all about, and how is and also internal order accounting. I'm going to explain cost center accounting using a simple layman example. Before we go into more complex business scenarios, let's look at a simple scenario without involving companies. I'm going to use a slide. Okay, let me explain the importance of cost center using a layman's example here. Let's say we are tracking expenditure for family, where the family has got a father and son, and the total magazines bought by the family in a month is $200. So they have bought magazines worth $200 in a month. This is just a cumulative figure to report the expenses for the family. But if we need to know what made up this $200, who bought which magazines and what the value was, we need to maintain the details of these expenses. Something like this: father has bought $30 worth of magazines, mother 70, daughter 40, son 60, which makes up $200. So each of this entry here, father, mother, daughter and son, will represent a cost center. If we were to map this into SAP, we need to use cost center in order to track these individual costs. Alright, so based on this simple family example, let me show you a more business example. Now look at this example. When I explained the concepts of controlling module, I have told you that the staff's party expenses for a company can be reported to a single GL account, which is called as staff's party expenses, and that is for the external reporting, and that is good enough to report to the external stakeholders that 20,000 has been spent for the staff's party expenses for a company within a period. But for the business internal reporting, we also need to know how much amount has been spent by each department, so that we can cut down the cost if it needs to be. So these are the details of how much has been spent by each department within the company. Let's assume there are 4 departments. Now, how are we going to record the individual details of the expenses by the department? Let me show you a few ways to do this, and I'll introduce cost center so that you understand. It will be easier to use cost center to record this kind of details rather than using any other method. Okay, this is FB50 T code you can see here, where we can post simple journals. Okay, let me show you how we can post this 20,000 with the details of what made up the 20,000. Okay, let me choose a date. Alright, now I can book this to a expenses account. Let me choose an expenses account. Okay, I'm going to choose other expenses because I don't have staff's party expenses account set up yet, so it doesn't really matter. All we need is just an expenses account. Just choose this and I'm going to debit this with 20,000, and our bank account should be credited. Where is our bank account? Cash in bank. Alright, credit 20,000 again. Now how am I going to enter these details here? I have entered these details, right? I also need to enter these details, how much has been spent by each department. So how do I do that? There's one option to do this without using a cost center, is to use the simple text here, or long text, and I can mention, let's use long text. Alright, it's 20,000 up. I need to use some other posting period, just hang on. Let's use 2009 June. Okay, now I click this document and posting date. Let me change the document date as well, 2009. Okay, let's see. Okay, okay, there is a error here. See entry in error log. Let's change this account to something else, because it requires entry here. So I'm going to delete this. Let's change to cash account instead. If we use a bank account, it requires some additional entry, so I don't want to waste our time entering those details. Let's use a cash account instead. Now let me see whether I can select this. Oh, still it needs the additional account assignment. Okay, let us do it now then. Okay, let me see what we need to enter. We need to enter the value in this field, BSAC ZF BDT. Let me find out what is this field value is. When I go here, I go to SE16, I enter BSAC table, I press enter, and I go to fields. I look for ZF BDT. It is baseline payment date. So we need to enter a value for the baseline payment date. Let me find out where the value is. Double click here. Baseline payment date is over here. Due date is 2009. Let's change it to 2009. This is baseline payment date, because if we click F1 and go to technical details, you can see it is referring to ZF BDT. So it's confirmed this is the correct field to enter the value. Then you go back, the error message will be cleared. Alright, so let us go to the long text and enter the value now. What I'm going to enter is these details here, department 1, 2, 3, 4, because I cannot enter the breakdown of the, you see before that, you see this, the line item has been checked. So once we enter the date in the ZF BDT field, this error has been cleared. So now we have only one amount field to enter the total figure. We don't have any sub amount fields to enter the details of the sub amounts, details of the total, sorry. So one option is to use this long tags to actually enter what made up those figures. So let me try to do that. You click this, you get a text editor. Alright, so here I'm going to enter this information, department 1 is 3,000, and copy copy this. Number 2 is 7,000. Department 3 is 4,000. Department 4 is 6,000. So now we have entered the details of the 20,000. Just click go back, so it is saved. Click OK. Right, the information that we have entered is contained in this long text. Can you see the difference? See, the call out box has got lines in it, which means there are some entries in it. If you see this call out box here, it is plain, there's no lines, so there's no information here. If you click on the first line, you can see some information. If you want to see the full editor, just click on here. You can see all the 4 lines. Otherwise you see only the first line here. Right, so do you think this will be good enough to enter this information? That means the breakdown of 20,000 using a long text without using a cost center. Let's see what implications we're going to get if we use a long text instead of the cost center. Now if I simulate this, yes, I can save. I can proceed to save, no issues. Alright, the total figure of 20,000 will be posted to the profit and loss account. But this is one way to actually store this information, for internal reporting purposes. So you can actually call out this long text in all the journal reports to see what makes up this 20,000, because we have already stored in long text. But for simple cases this is good enough. But let me tell you what is the disadvantage of storing the details under the long text. Let's say you want to do planning meaning that before the start of the year, financial year, you want to allocate a budget for each department, which means that their expenses for the whole year for this staff body expenses should not exceed a ceiling. What will be the ceiling? Let's say you have a ceiling of for department 1 you have a ceiling of 5,000, and for department 2 same thing, 5,000, or it can be a different figure, it's up to you. Let's say for department 3 is a more important department, let's say we give a ceiling of 7,000, and department 4 is not a big department, so we put a ceiling of 1,000, which means that the actual expenses for this staff body expenses for each of these departments should not exceed this budgeted amount for the financial year. So if you want to maintain this kind of planning or budgeting for each department, and you want to track the variance there later on, how much has been spent by actual expenditure by each department, and what is the variance between the planned figure, this is called a planned or budgeted figure, and this is the actual figure, and the variance is the difference between these two. Let's say the variance of this is 3,000 minus 5,000. Let me use another color, green or pink, to show the variance. 3,000 minus 5,000 will be negative 2,000, which means that not all the budgeted amount has been spent by this department 1, and for department 2 it's positive 2,000, which means that the actual amount is more than the budgeted amount, So any positive amount can be regarded as the department has overspent the budgeted amount. So this is a clear example of overspending by department 2, and department 3 will be negative 3000, which means underspent. This department has underspent, department 3, and the fourth department is also negative 4000, which means that it has underspent. That means it has got about 4000 more to spend. Oh sorry, this is 1000, right? So this is overspending. I thought this is 10,000. Alright, department 4 has overspent by 5000. So this is what we call variance. Let me label this accordingly. Let me move this down a bit so we got more space. Let me label each of these figures. This is actual amount and this is budgeted or planned, and this is the variance. Let me move this under variance. Alright, it's more clear now. Planned, I missed a D. Let me correct it. Let me just put planned. Okay, can you see? Can you see this? Actual amount spent is over here, and the planned amount and the variance. So if I want to do this kind of analysis, then how am I going to do it using the first example, which is using the long text? I can't really do it because I can't produce a report which can show the variance if I enter the details of the total cost using a long text. I cannot perform mathematical calculations on the text fields here because this is pure text. I can only see the breakdown of the 20,000, but I can't perform any other mathematical calculations on these figures, on this breakdown. So this is the bottleneck. This is the reason we need to use a cost center to store the breakdown of the total figure, so that the cost centers, the amount posted to the cost centers, can be used in mathematical calculations to derive these variance figures. This is where we will be stuck if we don't use a cost center and use a long text instead. So this is a limitation. This is a limitation of a long text. So how this is going to help us if we are going to use cost center to store the breakdown of the total figure? I'm going to show you in a short while. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to create a cost center for each of this department, and I'm going to post the actual amount spent by each department to the respective cost centers using this cost center field, and then I'm going to show you how am I going to store the planned values for each cost center, and finally I'm going to show you how we can extract a report which can perform mathematical calculations to subtract planned amount from actual amount to derive the variance figures. Okay, that is all by using the cost center. This is the explanation for this topic, why a cost center is required under the main topic of cost center accounting. Alright, next I'm going to show you the creation of cost centers and cost center groups, and also touch base on the earlier slide to show you how the cost center can be used to derive the variance and planned values. Right, let me stop here.